motivated you? How and why you you did what you're doing?
Okay. Well, I was that kid that wanted to be a pilot since I can remember. I always wanted to fly, and I think I know why, and I'll get into that.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of kids want to be policemen when they're kids, or
Yeah.
firemen or whatever. I wanted to be a pilot, and I think the reason why is because my dad bought a computer back in the 80s. I think it was a 286, and he bought a little software that was called Microsoft Flight Simulator,
Wow.
and he, with a couple floppies, put it
Yeah.
on the computer and installed it and learned how to fly himself using the book. My dad is not a pilot. Using the book and the instructions, and then of course my brother and I were intrigued, and he taught us, my brother and I, how to fly religiously on that machine in our basement back in New York.
And that was
so
in the 80s.
that was in the 80s. Yeah, it was black and white. I remember the screen was black and white, and we had the altimeter, airspeed, and it was taken off out of
Fun.
Chicago for some reason, and it was a lot of fun. And I think I'm sure that I fell in love with aviation at that point. And ever since, I wanted to be a pilot. And when I grew up a little older, I told my parents, I want to be a pilot, and they said, we don't think so.
Why
And
not?
so they wanted something different for me, and as some parents want, and for their children. And so I did other things, and when I was able to fund it myself, and was making my own decisions, etc., I decided to take my first flight lesson, and that was in 2009. That's right. You have to definitely have two things: money and motivation. And also, I'll say a third thing: support.
So 2009, and how long you've been working in horticulture? or what?
My first full-time job was at Bellevue College in 2005. I got hired full-time, and I started actually in 2003 as a part-time employee in the labs, and then they offered me a job full-time, which I accepted.
Okay.
So 4 years later of saving money and motivation, I took my first flight lesson.
How long it took you to get the license first?
Sure.
And do you own a craft yourself?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes, I do.
So, and how did you manage to get that?
Okay. Very good questions, by the way. So, first of all, let me just say that I tell people you need $10,000 and 6 months of your life. So it took me that time. I learned at Boeing Field at a club called Alternate Air. It's still around. They're the cheapest way to fly in the Pacific Northwest. I first was renting from that club, and then I went into a partnership, and then I went and owned my own.
Okay.
So it's a natural progression. Usually people start renting, and then they either buy their own or they go into partnership, meaning multiple people own one aircraft
And they share. Okay.
and then you own your own.
Oh, nice.
So I've been owning my own for 3 years now.
3 years.
Yeah, my baby.
But
Yeah.
do you need like a special parking for it, or?
Well, you either have to what we call tie down at the airport. They're open spaces, just like a parking spot on a parking lot for a car.
Yeah.
And they're hooks, so you can hook your plane so it doesn't fly away when it's windy, because they are kind of kites, right? And so they're at airport, they're tie downs, or they're open hangars, meaning it's just kind of like a carport.
Yeah,
You
I've seen that in museums.
Well, there you go. Park
Yeah.
the airplane underneath. There's no walls, but there's covered by rain and sun.
Yep.
And then there's the third option, which is the hangar.
Sure.
And the hangar is a box with an opening door, and that's, of course, as we talk here, the more fancy becomes, the more expensive. So in the hangar itself.
And how to transport it?
So, there's taxiways.
Okay.
So when you leave the gate at SeaTac and you're going to California for a vacation or whatever, they push you back, and then it kind of goes slowly for some time, and you're on the taxiway, and you're actually driving, or the pilot is driving you guys up to the runway, and then he or she will take off and bring everybody along.
So you've driven to like other states?
Yes, I have flown to other states.